Welcome to episode 28 of The Expert and the Idiot. Today I'm talking to Steven and Ashley of Focus Cubed Habitats. And you guys have some of the coolest cages out there. I had Tracy Judd on the podcast a few weeks ago, and she was talking about how much thought you guys put into the design of your enclosures for ventilation and airflow and all this stuff. And I thought, man, it'd be really cool to talk to people that are as passionate as you are. You're not just slapping PVC together and selling a cage. So yeah, I was dying to get you guys on. I'm happy you came.
Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. The old, 2-inch soffit vents are kind of a thing of the past. Everybody essentially made a box and they had some sort of door on it, and they went ventilation and they installed those little plastic soffit vents on the back, and that was it. That was the, latest and greatest tech. And I'm like, there's got to be a different way to go about this. It's still a lot of enclosures. It's all, passive ventilation still. So it's a random guesstimation of slots in the rear. And sometimes, you can get a little fancier and you can add some slots in the front, but it's kind of a fine balance of figuring out what's enough, but not too much. I would rather, err on the side of more ventilation than not enough. Cause you can get away with too much ventilation, but man, if you've got a icky, stuffy enclosure, there's no airflow. That's when you have problems develop. So I like more air than not enough.
Yeah, because if you have too much air, you're basically just going to be misting more, right? You're going to have to maybe work on keeping the humidity up and all that. But if you don't have enough, then you end up in this a swamp in a box, basically, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. You're growing all kinds of funky stuff in there. You're at the house trying to drill holes in it, and I hope this works. So I'm like, I'd rather have too much than not enough, because people talk about humidity retention. That's just another word for less airflow. So if you've got an enclosure that just retains all the humidity, I'm like, well, there's no air going in or out of there. That's not good.
Yeah. So what got you guys into reptiles? I'm assuming that the passion for reptiles and keeping reptiles came before making cages, right?
Yeah, well, I definitely married into that. So she's been all over it for basically ever.
Yeah, since I think I got my first iguana in 1994, and it's just been crazy since then. So I was, the weird kid, and at recess I was finding toads and frogs and stuff, and that's one of his first memories. We've actually known each other since like kindergarten. And I was the weird kid holding the toad that started peeing, and all the kids were running. But it's been a wild ride since then. But
yeah, I can still remember being in elementary school and coming around the corner and seeing this weird girl holding this peeing creature, and I'm like, that chick is nasty, And then, what is that, like 7-year-old brains?
Yeah.
But as you get older, I think she's actually pretty cool. So.
That's awesome. So, I mean, wow, that's incredible that you guys have known each other since elementary school.
Yeah, well, we lived kind of like sort of across the street from one another. So, her last name was Hartman and mine was Howdy. So we were always set alphabetically pretty much from elementary school, middle school. I guess high school stuff kind of changed a bit, but we've always been kind of near each other. We always had a locker sort of assigned near each other, and I did my best to pick on her throughout my youth, so I found her rather entertaining.
Yeah, the first day I got braces, he magically came to his locker, which he never did in middle school, and he called me Metal Mouth.
Yeah, I was one of those.
Oh, wow.
Had all the stuff in his backpack his whole life. And
that's hilarious. So it started with iguanas, and then where did you go from there? What do you keep now? What do you guys have now?
Yeah.
Well, that's a long evolution. So
yeah, it kind of went from iguanas as like a childhood, kind of pet. I ended up getting 4 iguanas. Two of them were given to us. My dad was a Houston police officer. He actually found a huge iguana in one of the city parks that somebody had just let go, and he chased it and actually brought it home, and I named him Lucky, and he was super cool. I had him for a long time. But yeah, and then, I guess through like high school and college, I had bearded dragons. And then once we kind of like got out on our own and had our own apartment and stuff, it, evolved from bearded dragons. We got tegus. And then now, once we got a house with multiple rooms, it just exploded from there. I mean, we've got 4 water monitors, a croc monitor, 4 bearded dragons. We've got how many green tree pythons?
Like 6
or 7 green trees. We've got a boa constrictor, 2 super dwarf retics,
carpet python,
a carpet python,
got 2 insularis, blue insularis.
Oh wow, that's my favorite. If I could ever have a hot, that's what it would be.
Oh, they're
gorgeous.
So cool. I mean, it's just so wild seeing a blue snake. You're like, how did this happen? What what does this color serve?
Yeah,
they're super neat. They're such cool animals.
That's so cool. So there's a couple things I want to talk about there. Croc monitor. How are you keeping your croc monitor? And all these monitors, you guys keep them indoors year round?
Well, yes. The water monitors, because they require a lot of daily water change, they're little ponds. And so they're actually out in the garage. We kind of converted the garage area to be with the water monitors. And then the croc monitor, he's got a double stacked enclosure in his own room. So he's, I guess she has his setup in there. But yeah, so they're all indoors. We've got the crested geckos all upstairs. And I guess like 4 or 5 rooms of her house are covered in reptile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the monitors, she's got her adorable little harness there. So we'll take a water monitor out to the driveway. He'll chill basically on the concrete out there heating up, and we'll stand out there and just spray him with a hose. And of course, it's just a neighborhood attractant there. Everybody driving by or walking by has to stop and figure out what it is, and they want to take pictures. And
yeah,
every time any of them comes out, it's a show.
He's like 40 pounds. He's a black dragon.
Black dragon. Yeah, he's gigantic.
He's a big boy.
He's huge.
Wow. Yeah, if I ever get a monitor, that's what it's going to be. I would love to get a black dragon.
They're my favorite water monitors out of all the creatures we've worked with. The water monitors are cool because their temperament, once you work with them, is kind of like a puppy dog as far as you can get with a reptile. But as long as you put the time in with them, they're adequately intelligent. They're fun to work with, and they're not so dangerous as like a larger animal or like a big constrictor or like the croc monitor. They're actually handleable.
How is it with the croc monitor? Is there a protocol you have for handling the croc monitor?
So he's twitchy. He's not like
he's not.
He doesn't like charge you or do anything aggressive like that. He's just kind of spazzy. I mean, you never know what he's going to do. And you open that door, he usually thinks there's food coming, so he kind of runs up to you and he's like shocked that there's nothing in your hands. He's not. Yeah, I don't think he's really mean in any way. He's just so fast.
Yeah, he's much faster because he's
call him
smaller
his
body.
windmills. So when he starts running, his just arms are a blur, and that dude is moving, man.
Wow. Now, how big is he now? Is he full grown or?
He's probably. I mean, it's tough to say because they're smaller bodied, especially than the water monitors, but they have that long tail. So he's probably like 7 feet.
You probably, yeah. He's not quite 8 feet, but most of that's tail. So I'm like, when you look at their body, he's not nearly as heavy bodied as the water monitors, but there's just a lot of tail, and that dude knows how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so cool watching him climb. And we've got some sticks and stuff in there. He can go to the other levels of his enclosure, and ain't no thing. He'll just shimmy straight up it. And when he comes down, he'll just hang on with his tail and just slide down like a fireman going down a pole. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Now the blue insularis, do you guys, how does that work keeping those in Texas? Can you just get them?
Yeah, I think with the state, I can't remember if those are one of the permit ones or not. Cause like for like the super dwarfs and stuff, you got to fill out the little Texas
venomous
Parks and Wildlife deal and all that kind of stuff.
But they're readily accessible. There's a couple shows that have hot shows. So, In Texas, it's pretty wide open. You just have to have,
Yeah,
you
it's
know, a
no
couple
big
permits,
deal.
but
Yeah.
it's not like they're, you know, any banned species or anything like that, just like the super dwarfs.
Nice. I would like to move there from here in Florida. It's a little oppressive here.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that is massive crackdown over there on anything and everything.
Yeah, all the tegus. I remember that's what I got my water monitor from was what is it? I can't remember what their name was, but they were big tegu breeders over there, and they actually moved to Texas because of the ban.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah, we used to have a tegu before they became restricted. I guess there's some wild populations out here now somewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I get it, and it's annoying at the same time. I almost wish if we had to do anything, you know, I've been having a couple guests on from Australia now. It'd be cool if we just had some sort of a process that you went through, some sort of a you know, a process to track who has what, and, you know, something like that would be better than an outright ban, you know, but
Yeah, the ability to prove that you have, you know, the space and the equipment to care for it. I mean, that's
sure.
99% of it, you know. If you've got the right stuff, then what's the big deal, you know?
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
bad eggs, you know, make it difficult for the rest of us who actually, you know, properly care for the animals.
And that's how it always is with most things, right? And, you know, and honestly, it would be a little concerning if FWC had the ability to just come into my house to check things too. You know, that would be a little concerning. I wouldn't be real happy about that, you know, with the way things have gone here in the past year or two.
Yeah, well, I think like the game wardens and stuff in Texas, I don't think they need much of anything just to come inside your house. If they think you've got something, I don't think it's a big to do for them to knock on the door and say, you know, show me what you got.
Really?
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
think there's a whole lot stopping them from doing that.
So, just how hot are the blue insularis? I mean, obviously, you know, you take every precaution possible. More and more now, ever since the recent events that transpired, I'm seeing more people free handling on their Instagrams and things like that. I generally, you know, click the little or tap the little ellipsis and say, "Show me less like this," you know, and.
Yeah.
But there were so many things that were coming up, so, you know, going around free handling that now it's coming to my feed more. Makes me so nervous seeing
Folks
it.
who are watching that stuff really aren't necessarily reptile
people,
enthusiasts. They're just people who are like, "Whoa, this is crazy," and you know, just kind of regular folks click on it and then obviously get the wrong idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not holding either of those snakes.
Good for you.
It's in and out. I mean, it's a 2-person operation. It's your full focus. I mean, it's not like, you know, if you get whacked by one of those, it's, you know, a death sentence, but it's not good. So it's something you just do not screw around with. So it's always both of us there. We're working at the same time. You're not walking out of the room unattended. If that door is not closed and locked, there's somebody in there with eyes on what's going on. It's something we take, you know, fairly seriously.
Yeah, you have to. I would assume they're a very small animal, right? So what's the process? Do you get them on a hook and put them in like a tub or something to do maintenance on the cage, change water and stuff like that? What does that look like?
Ours are in larger enclosures, so it's not, you know, so much that you're trying to get into a small space and navigate the animal. I mean, typically you can do a lot of cheating while they're eating. You know, if you can feed them, they're fairly busy. You can get in and out of there, changing out water and stuff. Make sure we have tons of water in tons of different places. So if for some reason maybe one isn't accessible, you can kind of cheat and get to one that's, you know, a little easier to get to. But typically there's really no big deal kind of reaching in there and changing that stuff out, as long as the animal is either busy or absolutely nowhere near.
Yeah. So what size enclosure do you keep them in?
They're in it's a 3 foot wide, 2 foot deep, 4 foot tall unit. So there's lots of kind of cover.
That's where the female's at.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the other one, he's
a little guy.
Yeah, he's
like a little worm.
He's a worm, and he's in a exoterra. We have one of our replacement tops on. So for scale, it's almost the same difference when you look at the size of the adult female versus the little bitty male we've got. It's, you know, relatively about the same.
Nice. So you just said replacement tops. That sounds pretty cool because I've had the exoterras and like the Zoom Ed front opening enclosures in the past, and you're always putting towels over and, trying to figure out ways to keep the humidity in.
Pieces, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we actually, for the exoterras, since they've actually got the swivel locks on top, we make a PVC insert that fits on the top. So you remove the whole screen part, and with one of our replacement tops, it's a PVC unit. It has some ventilation slots cut in it for like the standard version, and it literally just fits where that screen was. And you just turn your little closers over it so it's sealed in. You're not having to silicone it in and do all that goofy stuff. But those, I mean, we've got a couple different versions. Like the standard version has some vent slots in the rear and some cord slots. So what you can do is, if you wanted to install maybe you've got a longer unit, maybe you wanted an RHP on one side and maybe, a UVB near it, or if you wanted to, add maybe like a halogen or some kind of like lamp holder pro or something like that, you can actually screw that into the PVC top instead of having a bunch of junk kind of sitting on top. Awesome. And you're not having to, like, if you wanted to install a UVB inside or something like that, you don't have to worry about, trying to set it on the mesh and it's always rocking around on the little plastic nonsense. So you can actually mount them internally, and you can use things like RHPs and stuff like that. We have like a dart frog specific version that's super cool. Those have been crazy popular. They have there's no vents in those because it uses a large what would you call it, like a polycarbonate window on top. So if you wanted to put your LED or your grow light or whatever, you can set that on top. And on the front, there's actually a fiberglass screen, so you can put your UVB on top of that. So that kind of doubles as ventilation. And also you keep all of your heating and lighting stuff external, so you're not, generating any extra heat inside the unit. And plus that fiberglass screen and having no additional vents, that keeps all your fruit flies and stuff from, making their way into your house and taking over.
That's awesome. Because I've been thinking, I don't have any green tree pythons yet, but I've thought that it would be really cool to set up like a bioactive, like big exoterra or something like that. And then, you always come back to, but then it's going to have the mesh top and, you're going to lose that. Would you recommend that for a setup like that? Or would you recommend just going for just a PVC enclosure?
Well, if you've got the choice and the funds, switching to PVC is a good idea, but also everybody and their brother has an exoterra. So instead of having to buy, a brand new setup, if you can just buy a top with, the heating element and light of your choice and just set it in there, I mean, that saves you a bunch of money. And I mean, exoterras work. The problem with glass stuff is most people equate glass with like the loss of humidity. It's just the screen top. Now, the issue that you can run into with glass is basically kind of the thermal loss. That stuff transfers heat like crazy. So if you're in an especially cold ambient, glass does get a lot tougher just because it doesn't retain the heat. So it just kind of depends a bit on your ambient, but as long as you're not like in a freezing cold basement or something like that, man, exoterra works. We've got lots of customers with green trees and exoterras with our tops, and it works just fine.
Nice. Do they tend to go towards like the dart frog style top, or are they going for just the regular the PVC inserts for like snakes?
Yeah, those guys mostly use like the standard replacement top that we make, so they can install, green tree guys love using RHPs because they don't really have, most of them aren't providing like a dedicated hot basking area because, those snakes kind of tend to avoid particularly hot spots, so those guys will most of the time just install like an LED and an RHP for a basic, simple, can't screw it up setup.
Yeah, that's what I would need.
Yeah, it's basic and easy. I mean, those snakes are super easy to take care of. I mean, all you have to do is be a bit diligent and make sure, all of your parameters are in line. Other than that, it's really no big deal.
How do you guys keep your green tree pythons? Are you keeping them like bioactive or kind of, on substrate? Or are you doing the more sterile, like with the paper and things like that?
All of our adult, juvenile to adult green trees are in our what we call a heretic. It's that's the same thing the Insularis is in. It's a 3x2 by 4 foot unit, and it's all automated. So it's a bioactive setup. It's got probably at least a foot of substrate in there, and it's all live planted. And that unit, we all have them hooked to Miss King, so they, we just kind of play around with the misting cycles to figure out, what's not too much and what's not enough. So we'll usually cycle the Mist King in the morning and in the evening, and all the ventilation, because that's the biggest trouble with bioactive enclosures is the soil retains so much moisture. It's constantly evaporating all day. And that's typically why you have, people have bioactive enclosures and they had, respiratory problems. It's usually because there's just not enough ventilation. So on those Heretic models, it's all automated. So we actually have a charcoal filter. There's a 4-inch inline fan, and there's a probe inside the unit. So what it does is when that humidity level reaches past the set point. So if you've got it set to say 60, and once it hits 61, or if it starts to rise, that fan kicks on automatically. It's a large volume fan. We don't have it set to blow super hard.
They're super quiet.
Yeah, super quiet. You hardly hear it ever when it's running, and it just kind of runs until that humidity level comes back into check, and it just kind of waits. And as soon as it eclipses that point, it kicks back on, and it just constantly monitors it. So it's dead on, man. It's awesome.
Now, so if I were to buy one of those enclosures, is that fan included, or do you guys have a recommendation?
Oh no, it's all integrated into it. So that unit comes with the 2-foot stand. We have the fan and the filter setup is mounted inside the stand. So your Mist King, if you option it with that too, it's all mounted in that stand, and all of the hoses run out the back of it. And of course, the Mist King, we've got it plumbed to straight nozzles in the ceiling, and we have the fan plumbed into the back, the hose for it and the soffit for it in the lower rear. So what happens is when that fan kicks on, it blows filtered air from inside that stand up to the lower back of the enclosure. It comes up and across. So that's just how the airflow works inside the unit. And we have an exhaust vent on the top of the unit on the opposite side of the fan inlet to try and, kind of bring some cross flow to it. And it actually exhausts up the top out the front.
That is so cool.
No, it's nuts. I mean, it's
been over 1.5 years so far. We've been using them, and then a lot of development before that. But yeah.
So those units, the Heretic, it comes with, you're going to have halogen. Next to that, you're going to have a UVB on top of a piece of UV emissive plastic. So it actually the UVB sits outside of the unit, and it actually shines through a plastic that allows UVB to pass through. That material is ludicrously expensive, but it works. So of course we have solar meters and we check. So you've got your halogen, you've got that UVB. It has an RHP mounted in the center, and then the opposite side has a deep heat projector, and then on the front we've got a Jungle Dawn. So it has kind of the full spectrum up there, and we control all that stuff with the thermostat. So you can, if you're using like a standard like Arcadia UVB or Jungle Dawn, you can cycle those things on and off with the thermostat, or you can use the luminized stuff, which is what we switched to, and you just program it with your phone, all your sunset, sun up. I mean, it's
my God,
super neat. So in the morning, you're getting your coffee and stuff, the sun's coming up, and the UVB and the Jungle Dawn are just slowly starting to ramp up. And by the time you've done all your morning stuff, it's getting brighter. And same thing in the evening. You get back to the house, the sun's going down, and you've got those things programmed where they slowly dim.
So you come out to hunt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's cool. They know when it's about sunset, they all start flipping out and get ready. It's super neat. That enclosure, it was super difficult to figure out. I mean, we built, I don't know,
6.
Well, probably about 4 or 5 of them before I was kind of confident with like perch placement and stuff like that. I mean, just where you have your halogen position compared to the perch, if you're moving it slightly forward or slightly backwards, those units, I already have all of the probes pre-run for them. So everything's already mounted. They come with the Herpstat 4. I program them with my baseline settings for here. Obviously, that stuff's going to change depending on where you're at, because your ambient climate is different. But they all come rigged, ready to go.
Wow. That is nuts.
But yeah, changing the position of like where your probes are mounted makes a huge difference, especially the humidity sensing probe. So it depends how close or far it is from that deep heat projector, because those things obviously create a drying effect. So if you've got your humidity sensing probe too close to that, you're getting a false reading. One side of the enclosures, super wet and the other side super dry because it doesn't know what it's doing. So figuring out just where to put that thing it took a bunch of tries. I mean, we've spent well over 20 grand trying to build these different things and figure out which one of them works. And I'm very confident we've got it dialed in now.
That is incredible. I mean, that's like a life support system for a green tree python. And the cool part is like, cause that's been the most daunting thing is if I get one, I want to do it right. I want an enclosure like what you're describing. But it's like, it's gonna take so much work, so much effort trying to get that dialed in. And then what you're describing though is just something that's pre-dialed in. It's kind of, you just put your substrate and your plants in and let them go.
And just kind of double check everything. Those units come with, they come with two of what we call our hydro claws. It's basically a hanging water dish that you don't have to screw into anything. So imagine 2 hooked arms and a base that holds like a deli cup essentially. So instead of having to figure out where you're going to screw your water bowls into the wall or screw them into your perch, they literally just hang on. And what we do is we send that thing with one of those hydro claws that actually has a mount that we made for a sensor push. So you can, while you're in your testing phase, you can take that hydro claw and you can move it around in the enclosure and just kind of quickly spot check, temps and humidity there. Obviously with your laser gun, you're going to, check basking areas and stuff like that. But I mean, when you get it and you plug it in, it's going to be pretty close. You're just going to have to fiddle a little bit, to compensate for your ambient, but it's pretty straightforward.
So when the Mist King comes on, then it detects the high humidity and then the fan kicks in once the Mist King is off. So kind of replicating nature, right? It usually rains, rain stops, sun comes out, and then the wind blows and it dries everything out.
Yeah, instead of like having a mist and then guess how long you're supposed to mist and then hope the humidity goes away, the machine does it. I mean, it goes, hey, 65%, and it gently kicks on and kind of blows that excess humidity out. But like I said earlier, that moisture is constantly coming out of that soil. So like I've noticed ours, they seem to cycle on not quite 60 seconds or so. And that's probably around every 15 minutes, something like that seems to be kind of like the natural cycle. So if you're at home and you're trying to, run a fan system that's non-automated, that's been a pretty good guide for us. That seems to be what they do. Obviously depends how moist the soil is. When you're first setting it up, it's obviously going to be much more moist. So the fan's going to be kicking on more or less. But yeah, like you mentioned, that Mist King comes on, sprays everything. Then you're going to just pull out that excess humidity, but you still have all your plants that are actually getting, the leaves are getting misted. So you're not drying your plants out from the leaves. But still watering the plants is still, manual, obviously, as it dries out over time. You're just kind of spot watering them to make sure that they've got enough moisture. But we've been using soil meters at the house plugged into it. So I kind of know the range that all the plants and stuff need to be in. So I'll watch that and I know when to water them. But those units, we have one at the house that isn't planted technically. It's got, what would you call them?
Potted.
Yeah. It's got 3 potted plants in there. So if you're afraid of bioactive stuff, but you want to have, natural live plants in there, you can do that. It's the exact same process and it still works just as good. That's actually kind of one of my favorite ones because it's just super simple. I mean, it's just, if you want to move your plants around or take them out, if you got to do something in there, you can just lift them out. It's not like you're having to dig them out and replant them and stuff. So it works super good and just with potted plants.
Nice. What kind of plants do you guys, what are your go-tos for
Dracaena? Dracaena is, I mean, they are super hardy. We tried out several other, I guess types of plants in our first one and kind of learned like the green trees are actually super active at night. Like people say that they don't move a whole lot. I'd say most of ours, except for our one female Aru, they all move around a ton. So the plants have to be hardy enough to be trampled, by exploring animals. And the Dracaena, they're pretty hardy with, over or under watering as we learn how to, take care of the plants. We're more reptile people than we are plant people.
The plants are tricky.
Yeah, the plants. Yeah. So we had a learning process there, but the Dracaena, they have great coverage for the animals so they can hide under the leaves. Sometimes the green trees disappear because they blend in so well with the Dracaena leaves. But yeah, that's definitely our main go-to, especially for, hardiness, trampling, and coverage.
Yeah, pothos, that works good too if you just need a lot of general cover. Yeah, just basically stuff like that. We keep it fairly simple in there. And those plants, they're tall, long leaf, they look good. It's really neat watching, green trees, I guess you could call it cryptic basking. So when the UVB is on, you'll see that snake underneath a leaf, and you'll see him kind of creep over for a little while and creep back under. And then, of course, when nightfall comes, they use every inch of that thing. I thought a 3x2x4 was huge for a male green tree python. Not at night, man. They find
Everywhere.
every square inch. I mean, they are
Wow.
up, down, left, right. They are busy animals.
Yeah, we've got some shorts on YouTube of we've got like a security cam that will sometimes point at them, and it's just a snake going all over the place for 8 hours.
8 hours all night long. You're like, holy moly, this dude is getting some exercise.
Wow, I'm gonna have to go watch those. That sounds awesome. So it's 3 wide, 2 deep, and 4 foot tall.
Yeah, 3 wide, 2 deep,
With
4
a
foot
stand.
tall.
It's about
and then you've got the stand, which
2
is
foot
about
stand.
2 foot underneath that. So
So
everything's accessible and ergonomic and stuff. We have all the controllers for that mounted on the front, so you have your controller for your fan. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do with the fan too. I just keep it on the high humidity setting where it triggers on when it reaches that particular point. But I mean, you can set those things up where it's set off via temperature, humidity. There's all kind of other crazy stuff you can do. But I just keep it simple. And I'm like, I just want 60% in this area and go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to think of wall space right now. I'm thinking like, where could I fit one of those? And then where could I fit a second one?
Yeah. Yeah. Our whole front room is just full of them. We got, when you walk in our house, it's a dining room and it's just full of snakes. And that one whole wall, I mean, looks like you're walking into a zoo. So we typically install, most people option them with that like universal rocks background. So that's an option we have for them. So if you want a naturalistic looking background, we install those. You can get those units with or without side windows. The side windows are kind of cool. But if you've got multiples, it doesn't do you too much good because you're just stacking them next to each other. But, if maybe your doctor's office or something wants to get rid of the aquarium and wants something different, side windows are super cool for stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the perches PVC perches, or do you guys do like natural wood perches?
Well, we offer those in 2 different ways. So we offer them we use carbon fiber perches. So instead of the old school PVC water pipe, we actually have carbon tube stock here, and we'll cut that stuff down and fit it for our perches, perch mount, should I say. And we also offer those wood look twisted PVC perches. So if you're going for the all natural look, you can get those, and we've got a bunch of different sizes of those twisted wood look PVC perches. Or you can, if you like the kind of modern industrial stuff, we've got the carbon ones in a ton of different sizes too you can get.
That's awesome. Is it important to offer different size perches like throughout the cage?
Yeah, well, I typically do. I usually install like larger diameter perches towards the bottom and smaller ones up towards the top. I mean, perch size really depends who you ask. Some people will want to use itty bitty tiny stuff, and some guys will want to use 30+ millimeter baseball bats. So it's kind of, I think it's more of a person preference maybe than it is an animal preference. I'm not 100% on, there's not necessarily a formula. This size snake should be on this size perch. I mean, some people you can ask, they'll definitely tell you that, but I see them using all kind of different sizes, and it seems to be okay.
Yeah, it depends on the animal. Most of ours tend to go to, I guess rule of thumb is a half the diameter of the snake size. But I mean, we've got some animals that choose like a 12 millimeter perch, and they're fairly large, and it just depends on, what they like and what they're used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of animal preference there.
That's awesome. So, when did the company start? When did Focus Cubed Habitats become a thing? And then like, what have you learned, and what was the first enclosure, and where are you guys now?
I think it was around this time you got your first CNC machine. It was 2019, September, October 2019.
Yeah. Well, she was selling geckos at like local reptile shows and stuff.
Prestons,
and I was just, I don't know, I get randomly excited and interested in strange things. And I was like, oh, I want a CNC machine. And of course, I wasn't fixing to spend $1 bajillion. So I got a small, like 30 by 30 inch unit that used just an old school router on top. You just had a knob. You made it spin more. You made it spin less. And I started using some design programs online. Like we use Fusion 360. And that's all I did was just kind of watch some YouTube videos, and I wanted to mill some acrylic stuff, but I was afraid acrylic is hard and scary and I'm going to break my machine. So I'm like, what is a soft material? And, PVC is super soft. So I was like, well, I probably won't screw anything up if I start playing with that. So I got some PVC pieces, and, she was acquiring more animals, and I'm like, I'm going to make a reptile enclosure. So I made this itty bitty box for a skink named Greg that we have. So we called it the GB1, the Greg Box 1. And it sucked.
It was horrible.
I had this great idea. I was just going to like cut a couple squares, and I was going to use some PVC glue and glue it together. And it was awful. And that just made me so mad. I made another one, and that one made me mad. So I made another one, and then it just kept going and going. And we were limited to like 30 inches was as big as we could make. So I was like, well, we can make some enclosures for geckos, and we'll put them on, the table when you're selling your geckos, and we'll see if anybody will buy them. And then also I was like, well, what's cool too? And I was like, well, green trees, you see the enclosures, it was this, everybody had the same exact enclosure with the same exact PVC water pipe. And I'm like, I think I can make this look a little bit cooler. So the first one, it was a black unit. It was a 2x2x2. We had a giant holographic logo on the front.
Huge.
I had red perch mounts, which I thought was revolutionary. I was like, nobody's tried red. And then we had the carbon fiber perches. So we took that to a show, and tons of people looked at that thing. And then a couple of them bought those gecko enclosures. I was like, dude, this is no way. So then I was like, let's make a website and see if people on the internet will buy them. So we made a website, and then people on the internet started to buy them. And of course, we're getting the green tree guys stirred up because it was such a weird, novel idea. These crazy, goofy looking enclosures with their carbon perches and just wild designs. And so those guys started going nuts and kind of messaging us. You'd either get, I hate your stuff and you're terrible. Why are you doing this? We already have the most perfect thing ever. And then you'd have the guys who were curious, like, yeah, I kind of want to try something different. So, COVID kind of happened, and I was working at a motorcycle dealership, and they sent us all home. It was the first 2 weeks deal. So like, you're going home, 2 weeks, don't come back to work, and no, you're not getting paid. And at this time, we were still making boxes for shows. And I was like, you know what? I worked a regular job because I thought it was a secure thing. And I realized there's no such thing. You could be, terminated or out of a job for any reason. I went, you know what? I'm just going to try my own thing. So I quit my adult grown up big boy job and started making boxes in the garage. And it blew up out of control. I was so swamped and overwhelmed. I finally looked at Ashley, and I'm like, either I have to quit doing this, or you got to quit your job and help me, because there's no way I can keep up with this.
Yeah, we were doing it. I mean, it wasn't even light outside, and we were out, having to rip down 4x8 sheets to fit on the small CNC machine, and he'd be able to work throughout the day. But I mean, I'd go to work and then come back, and we'd go back out to the garage. Well, he'd still be in the garage, but I'd go back out there and help him. And I mean, it was, we were working like, 80, 90 hours a week then. It was, insane. And that was probably 6 months. We did that for 6 months because we really didn't want to lose health insurance. That was a huge deal of like a real job. So I was like, and finally it was kind of working out, and we were growing and growing. And yeah, I had been working there, 7 years at at a car dealer. And, I was like, hey guys, we're going to try to do this on our own. So we took the leap, and that was 5 years ago. Yeah. It's been hammered down ever since. Yeah. It's not let up at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And COVID was crazy too, because everybody and their brother was buying stuff. I was so excited. I had my phone set to notification whenever we got an email, which was typically an order. And I was like, this is awesome. And it was, one day, ding. The next day it was ding, ding. And then the next day it was just ding, 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 ding. I'm like, oh my God.
It was anxiety.
I had to turn the notification off, because just all day long it was just going off, and nothing was available. I mean, you couldn't get
nothing.
You couldn't get plastic. You couldn't get accessories. We would drive all over the state to get just a couple sheets of plastic.
Wow.
Go Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, whoever had it, we just went and bought it. And of course the prices were out of control too. So every time you went to go buy material, it was 30% more. So you had no idea, like when plastic would come in, any of these plastic suppliers would just tell you, we have no idea what it's going to cost, and we're not going to tell you until you show up with a trailer. So you just had to just show up and kind of eat it. It was tough.
We had, lead times. So, as we're working through previous orders. So you'd sell an enclosure at a certain price when the plastic was a certain price, and then you'd go buy it for double the price. And so you'd be basically you'd be working for free.
It happened a long time because you could not guess what anything cost. And every time I'm like, there's no way it's going to go up another 30%. No way. I get there, I'm like, sure enough did. And that went on. Plastic prices and all that stuff over doubled. So it was ludicrous.
Yeah. I was still breeding crested geckos at that time. And fortunately, that's basically what kept us going, is the crested geckos, because the enclosures in the very early days, because of the COVID stuff, we were not making anything.
Yeah. And, people had bought a product at a certain price, and I wanted to honor it. I didn't want to go, hey, you guys actually owe me more money now because I'm not making enough doing it. We just took it on the nose for a while. I'm like, the people bought the stuff. This is what I was supposed to cost, and I'm not going to go ask them for more money, which that got a little painful after a while, but you just kind of keep doing the right thing and stuff kind of works out. So I didn't want to do that to anybody.
So your facility there, is that on your property, or is that offsite from your house?
Well, we started in the garage, so that, lasted a few months. We had freight trucks.
Yeah, 6-8 months.
Yeah, we had freight trucks rolling through our neighborhood. So think of a full-size semi, 53-foot trailer, 7 a.m. dropping stuff off. Every neighbor's coming outside looking at us. I'm like, this is not working out. So we went, I'd say maybe 15, 20 minutes or so from the house, there was an industrial complex, and we rented a small space in there. And that was our first big leap out of the garage. So we had already upgraded machine size once. So we went from, a 30-inch unit to a full 4x8, machine that could cut full-size sheets. And we moved into the shop, which is it's right over there. You can't see it, but it's actually touching this building. So we outgrew it within a year. So then we doubled our space, which is the shop that we're in now. And really we need to double again, but this is just an industrial complex, not too far from the house, right down the road. So we don't have a crazy commute or anything like that.
Yeah, it's
so
like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's no big deal to get here, but it is definitely offsite now.
It's a big, this area, around Conroe, Texas, as y'all know, it's growing. So there's a lot of competition. When we first signed up for the first small space, there was already somebody else interested in it. So we walked in, and literally Steven turned around after seeing it and told the guy, we'll take it.
Yeah. The guy opened the door, and I saw there was a transformer and there were plugs in the wall. I'm like,
yeah. So
the door shuts. All right, I'm in. So we ran over there, and we couldn't sign the papers fast enough. And we used that space for as long as we could, but immediately outgrew it. Even this one, you get a couple enclosures on the floor, it's already packed. So it's essentially, imagine like a mirrored unit, and it's split in half. So one side of it's kind of the machining side. So we have all of our plastic material. We have the new CNC over there. We have I think it's like a 55 by 100, 150 watt CO2 laser. And I've got my little office and stuff over there. So that's where we machine everything. And then we wash all the pieces, and then they come in here, and this is where they get
the production side
assembled and packed and accessories installed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's a couple customer units behind us there that we've got to pack. So that's kind of, today's adventure. After this, we'll pack all that stuff, but we've got lots more coming. So we have an 8x4x4, and we have two, what are those things?
4x3x6.
Yeah, 4x3x6s that we've got to build in here. And that'll take up most of the space in here because those are freight ship units. So we actually palletize them, and we don't just lay them on a pallet and strap them down. We actually build a crate around them. So they're
a box for the box.
Yeah, they're sheeted in OSB, and we've got, metal angle that we screw them and bolt them all together with. They're all attached to the pallet. So it's not just we wrapped it in some foam and put it on a, pallet that's not the right size and wish it good luck. They are boxed up and crated up. They're solid.
All enclosures are pre-assembled. So with the big ones, we pre-assemble them, and then we take them back apart and palletize and crate them. So it's quite a process for the large
Or we'll
enclosures.
ship them assembled, just depending on what
it depends
they are.
on what somebody wants.
The most 8x4x4s aren't going to fit in your front door, so they've got to be flat packed anyhow.
So what could you walk me through what the machine is? You said CO2 and lasers. I that sounds cool.
Yeah, we've got 2 essentially cutting machines. So the main one is going to be the CNC router. So it's a new unit for us. It was ludicrously expensive. I mean, you could buy a very nice automobile for what this thing cost. It's a full format machine, so it's also capable of cutting slightly over a 4x8 sheet. But this thing is like 4,600 or 4,800 pounds. Wow. It is huge and heavy. It's got a 5-horse spindle, which is kind of the cutting tool. So imagine like a router, but gigantified.
Massive.
So it's 220 volt router. It's got an automatic tool changer. So I've got 10 tools in the back. So when you lay out your program, say I need to do a drill op, and that's all going to be 1/8 holes. And then I need to cut some 1/4 pockets. So when it's done drilling the 1/8 holes, you say, it'll drive to the back. It'll drop that tool off. That spindle will drive over and pick up the next tool, and it'll resume cutting. So my old machines, when you'd have to switch tools, everything would shut off and stop. I'd have to run over there. I'd have to manually bust the collet loose, take the cutting tool out, put the different size in, and then I'd have to remeasure the tool height and continue it on. This thing now just does it all automatically. It's got a vacuum system that holds the material to the sheet. So there's, what MDF is, kind of that's like speaker boxes are made out of. Imagine like it's like a super fine kind of particle board. Okay. So we set that on the table of the machine, and it's got a set of vacuums in the rear that you turn on, and those vacuums actually create negative pressure underneath that sheet. It draws air through it. So when you put your PVC sheet on top of it, it actually sucks it down. So there's no mechanical hold down. There's no clamps or screws or anything. You turn those vacuums on and boom, it sucks that PVC sheet to the top of the machine, and it cuts everything out and nothing moves.
Wow.
But that's for like polycarbonate and PVC and HDPE and stuff like that. Now we use the laser for acrylic. So what it does, it's got this long tube that has a bunch of water passages through it that cools it, and it actually just shoots 150 watt CO2 laser beam through it. It uses a set of mirrors to bounce that laser beam around the machine, and it actually goes inside. I don't know what you'd call it. You've got like a focusing lens, basically, that takes all that power and it makes it into a super teeny tiny beam of light, and it slices through acrylic. We use it to etch stuff. It's crazy. So
yeah, we've got a couple reels of it in working on Instagram and like our YouTube. So it's pretty cool to see. You can actually like see the laser beam go through the tube.
Yeah, it's got a water chiller off to the side to make sure the tube doesn't get too hot. It's really trick. I mean, it's just so weird watching this thing drive around shooting this invisible beam of light, and you just see the acrylic it just has little lines through it, and you pick it up and it's perfectly cut, and it's a teeny tiny width that, like, I think they call it the kerf width, which is the width of the actual laser beam itself. And when it cuts it, obviously, since it's doing it with a laser, it's like a flame polish edge. So instead of using like a router bit, that kind of makes the edge of the material look hazy, it's like crystal clear. So when you look at the sheet this way, it's clear, and when you turn it that way, it's clear. It makes a not sharp edge. It's awesome.
That's bananas. Wow.
It's crazy. It's just stuff you never would have thought you'd need, but if you're going to do any of this stuff at scale, you need a lot of equipment. It has to be big, and it has to be good.
How many or extra orders would you get around the stimulus checks back when those were coming in? Would you guys get like a giant influx of orders?
That was the whole turn the phone off thing. I mean, yeah. I was like, oh my God, it went nuts. Everybody had, a grand or two just to burn. And they were like, well, let's do it.
Buy enclosures.
People bought animals and enclosures, and it was insane. And it was, I guess, fortunate for us because we were teeny tiny, nobody knew about us. So it was kind of like a really good kickstart, but fortunately wasn't very profitable because everything just got more and more and more and more expensive. But it was a good way to get a bunch of enclosures out there, and people go, oh, this stuff is actually kind of cool. So we built kind of a solid customer base, starting from nothing mostly, I think, because of that. So it was kind of, you definitely didn't get rich doing it, but you made a lot of friends and people who are interested and excited about what you've got, kind of artificially, I guess, instead of just slowly growing. Everybody went crazy and just bought stuff. And that gave us the opportunity to try hard and make good things and
learned a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah. And
So
kind of people with us.
all those profits that you made in the beginning, did that fund all the new machinery? Would you hit like a milestone and say, all right, let's upgrade now?
Well, a lot of that was kind of out of necessity to keep up. It really wasn't like, oh, I've just got a ton of money from selling enclosures. A lot of this was just kind of out of our own pocket. So it's not like the business was making so much. I was just, writing checks for stuff off the business profits. It took a lot of our own capital to do it. So I've not taken out any like loans or SBA stuff. We've all done this on our own.
Wow.
That's been kind of the hard part, is you had to dig into your own pocket to get the thing going, which, fortunately we had a little bit of a buffer. We could afford to do that, and it's made all the difference. But, trying to start this off from nothing is super duper hard.
I bet. Yeah, I can't imagine. And how do you had brought up health insurance before. How do you navigate that? Owning your own business and everything. That always seemed like it would be sort of a terrifying idea.
It is. We work through a broker, and we have private health insurance. But
so you just pay a lot. For
it's
virtually nothing.
It's not accepted most places. I mean, we basically have what's called a catastrophic plan. So it's not like you can go to the doctor and have a copay or anything. You pay out of pocket for that. But like if you have something serious happen, they pay a percentage like a normal insurance would. But yeah, it's definitely not great.
That sounds like something we need to fix as a country. There should be better alternatives for people that aren't in. It's like they incentivize being a worker bee, and like everybody just needs to either fit into that system. And if you don't, you're screwed monetarily, and if you're not independently wealthy, you're screwed, and yeah, it's sad to hear that. Like you guys should have the same health insurance that everybody has, because
it's transparent. It shouldn't be like, okay, XYZ corporation can buy tons of insurance at a discount, whereas, regular old me can't. And I'm like, what's it matter who signs my checks? I'm the same person. I need the same, care regardless of who's paying for it. I'm like, I don't know. It's just, you learn you can buy a lot of stuff, health related, on a cash basis. And oftentimes it comes out cheaper than if you had insurance anyhow. So I'm like, it's a screwy system, man. We can just go places. If you need a medicine or whatever, you just tell them no insurance, cash price. Everything's so much cheaper. It's amazing. You go to CVS and somehow they find all sorts of coupons and discounts to get that, whatever you're trying to get, whatever your prescription is, you can get it for a whole lot less than if you had insurance. So I'm like, I don't understand how this works.
Oh, well, I mean, it makes sense, right? The insurance companies are, they have to pay the medical companies, and they just hike the prices up. And yeah, it's a shell game. It's bananas.
It's
a big
scam.
System.
Yeah. I cut my arm off or something. Other than that, I'm fairly durable. So I've been good at, usually when I'm at the doctor, I've hurt myself. So I'm trying to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have kids, and, you see the bills from childbirth and all that. And it's like, how is it this much money? The doctor was in the room for 4 minutes. He did none of the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't push the kid out.
I mean, when you start adding like kids and stuff like that to especially the kind of insurance that we have, it gets. I mean, it's comedically expensive.
It's so expensive. Like
somebody just smashed a keyboard and was like, "Yeah, that looks good."
They smashed it and held it on it for a while.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's terrible. That's something that needs to be fixed one way or another. That it shouldn't be that way. Especially, I mean, you guys are starting a business or you have a business rather, but at some point, do you plan on growing to the point where you have employees and things like that, and you can, sit back and watch other people run around and work?
Well, that'd be the wise thing to do. I guess I'm not quite that bright, and I'm, here all day crawling around on my hands and knees and stuff. It's like, it looks funny, I guess, from the outside. If you're just cruising around on the website, it looks like this big company where there's, like you can contact the shipping department or the sales department or this or that. I'm like, it's either me or her, you
That's
know?
it.
But yeah, help would be nice, but like right now it's so tough because we're in such a small space. I'm like, her and I just basically run into each other all the time. So we're trying to expand. Like, I don't know if I mentioned, we're trying to lease the building next door so we can grow further. And I'm like, maybe at that point you could hire somebody. It's just the tricky part is there's so many little one-off decisions that I have to make. It's tough for somebody to intuitively know what to do. Now, as we get a little bigger, we're trying to get a little smarter and offer, pre-configured setups, which are, just kind of copy paste, just over and over and over, do the same thing again and again. And I think that would be really good for somebody, just to kind of help, just screw stuff together. It's very basic. It's just, you have to know what to do. When you don't know what to do. And it's half the time, like we have some help every now and then with some friends that come by, and I spend a lot of my time just kind of telling them what I would do. And then sure enough, I could have just done it in the same amount of time. But for like standardized stuff, having somebody around that could do that would help a lot.
Now, palletizing your shipments, are you seeing overall less loss that way? Is that why you go that direction? Like, it might be more expensive up front, but you're not going to run the risk of a smash cage showing up at somebody's front door.
Well, that's preemptive. That's why we pack everything super well. We've learned, in the beginning, we figured, hey, we're paying these shipping companies to, ship our package, but they don't take care of it at all. So it all falls on us to be able to pack it correctly. And of course, we don't want the enclosure to show up damaged to the customer who's been waiting patiently, to have it. So we put a lot of care and packing into our flat pack enclosures and our freight enclosures, because we've had experiences with damages that were definitely not good on our end. Now, we always made it right for, somebody who's been patiently waiting. We make it right, but we hardly ever get like freight damages.
Awesome.
You're not going to get, if you have a damage with freight, it's usually, that's why we crate them now, is we've learned over time is they don't honor anything. They say, we've had security camera footage and stuff. If an enclosure shows up damaged, and they're like, no, we're not going to pay you.
Wow.
So it just comes out of our pocket to fix it.
Yeah. So I'm like, if you just go shopping, for a large enclosure and you're really worried about just the price of freight and that's how you make your decision, I'm like, ours is probably going to cost more because it's going to be actually crated and shipped correctly. So instead of, something damaged showing up to your house and everybody just goes, well, I'd rather spend, $200 more or something and have an enclosure that's going to arrive in one piece, and you're not going to have to deal with all the headache of trying to find, which piece broke, what fits, what doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I'd rather just do it right once the first time and be done with it. But also we have local pickup too. So like for larger enclosures, oftentimes people, they'll just come down here and grab it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish you guys were closer to me. I have a local guy, and I've seen some of the stuff, and just the amount of space it takes up is absolute insanity. I mean, with just the stacks of PVC and the machine and all the it's such a huge space, like what size is that facility that you guys are in right now? Do you know, like, how many feet?
I think it's like 2,400 square foot. I think
that's a big facility.
Oh, it's tiny.
Oh yeah. We need double.
That's the thing. It's tiny. It's nothing. Everybody's like, hey, can I come by your showroom and check out your stuff? And I'm like, this is it. I mean, it's just me got stuff half screwed together everywhere. There's no room for anything like that. It's just literally, it's piles of plastic, machines. Then it comes over here and it gets screwed together and goes right out that other door. that is it.
Wow. You said that, so after it comes off the machine, you said you wash it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you wash it with?
Just water.
Okay.
You want to get all the like little PVC particles and maybe MDF particles and stuff like that off of it. Cause I've seen some of them before. Other manufacturers, they'll just cut them and screw them together and ship them out. And they're just completely filthy and covered in dust and junk. And that just drives me nuts. So every piece is hand washed and dried. And that's all before we start to assemble it. So I want to make sure everything is clean and you don't have a bunch of like particles of junk everywhere. So
it's all that little extra bit that, goes on behind the scenes that nobody really realizes.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. So you have to like take it outside and hose everything down, and then you dry it, and then assemble it, and then unassemble it, and then pack it.
Wrap it, pack it, make your box, make all your hard cardboard edges, all your foam edges. A lot of that stuff's all hand cut. A lot of the boxes have to be hand cut because it's such weird sizes. There's not necessarily a box readily available for everything. And of course, the amount of options you get will change the box size too. So a lot of it's just, Ashley hand cutting her own boxes, and she's gotten pretty good at making boxes.
Yeah, he does the machining and a lot of the assembly, and then I'll disassemble all the enclosures, and I pack every single enclosure that's ever left here. So thousands of enclosures. So if you're talking, I usually do most of the social media, and I do like the disassembly and packing, and then Steven's he does the designing and the
I
machining.
will not pack.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever packed an enclosure.
I will not learn. I am not interested. I'm not doing it. That's hard.
Yeah.
Packing is hard.
It's yeah.
And takes forever.
It takes a very long time. So like, for example, if we have a crated enclosure, it takes about a day, usually multiple people. And when you think about that, that's why the larger enclosures has longer lead times. One, it's finding the space to assemble them, working it into the production. And the other thing is having, setting aside a day or two to be able to pack it. So, because you're not going to be able to work on anybody else's stuff when you're doing that. So it's just the time dedicated to the larger builds. It's not that they're necessarily more difficult, but they do require a little extra attention. So they have, the longer lead time to fit into our production schedule.
Yeah. Like, hey, the floor is clear. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many days a week do you guys work? 8 or 9?
Yeah, we oscillate between 5 to 7.
In the beginning, it was always 7.
It was 7 for years, and then it was like, oh, hey, we got new equipment, we got faster, and I was like, well, let's try and take 2 days a week off. That didn't last, so now we're 6 to 7 again, just depending on workload and what comes due, because it's tough to predict. Like, you'll have a bunch of enclosures that were ordered a while ago that have a longer lead time. And then you have a bunch of people right when those are due order enclosures with a short lead time. And then suddenly you went from, oh, we got to get, maybe 5 things done today. And then it's 25. And you're like, oh no.
Mm. Yeah.
So 7th day comes back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you guys, taking that on. I mean, it's gotta be monumental. It's gotta be so much stress, and I don't know how you keep doing it, especially for that many years. That's so much work.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild. But also, I'm like, what else are you gonna do? Watch TV or
Yeah.
Well, yeah, screw that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, you get to kind of play around with tools and equipment and stuff here, and
Lots of learning.
Yeah, you get to make new stuff and try out new ideas and dream up new ways of going about the plastic rectangle. So it's something to do, I guess.
Yeah. That's and you don't have a boss, right? I mean, your customers are your, they're your encouragement, but you're your own boss, and obviously you're out there just putting in the work.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to. Like, when I started doing this, I was like, man, I'm gonna be done with enclosures by noon, have them packed and shipped out, and I'm gonna go screw around the second half of the day. And you realize that's not how that works at all. You're like, well, and everybody will tell you that too. Like, well, you're self-employed, you can go to work whenever you want. And I'm like, well, that's every day. I don't not go. There's hundreds of people out there who have an order in queue, and I'm like, I've got to do my thing to get those people their stuff.
Yeah, we want to be honest about it and work hard, because we put our lead times on the website, and we try. I mean, we're almost exact on every single shipment, just trying to, and that may mean working later or working that 6th or 7th day, but we understand that people, this is, they're excited about it, and it's something that they're looking forward to, and we don't, we want to make sure that it's a good experience. So we put in that extra, go and make it happen.
What are your lead times generally?
It really varies on like model and stuff like that. So usually like our smaller units are stuff that people are going to need, more quickly. If like a breeder's letting go of a bunch of, neonates or young juveniles or whatever, you're going to need something fairly quickly. So those kind of smaller units have a shorter lead time. Like, we have some of our smaller like green tree setups or arboreal setups. Those are, 2 weeks for those. We have what's called our IQ series, which is kind of a more standardized kind of product. So They don't come with any options or anything. You just get to choose black or white. So this is for folks who have their own, halogen or their own heat panel, and they understand how to install stuff. You can order, an empty IQ series enclosure, and those are 2 weeks, and those are all kinds of different sizes. So from, 2-foot cubes up to, 4x2x2, 6x2x2s. We've got, 3x2x3?
4x2x4.
4x2x4. Those are 2 weeks, but then you can get super large exotic enclosures, and those can take up to 15 weeks, in that range, just as we can find time to build them and get them packed and not interrupt all the workflow here.
Yeah, each model has its own specific lead time, so we have it on the model page and as well as in like our FAQ.
The vast majority is like 6.
Yeah, around 6 to 8 weeks.
If you're ordering most normal enclosures, kind of standard sizes like 4x2x2s and stuff like that, it's 6-ish, something like that.
That's really good.
It's not crazy.
No.
During COVID, we were like 18 weeks on everything.
Couldn't get stuff.
Matter, if it was this big, I'm like, it is going to be 18 weeks. We are just slammed. We try and workflow that stuff and try and keep, a few pieces in stock. So it's not like a everyday one-off machine, the whole thing.
Yeah. Try to batch it. Most common enclosures like the 4x2x2s, we usually have a batch of them and we'll do multiples at a time just to keep it efficient.
What's the coolest thing you guys have done so far? Like have you done anything for any zoos or anything like that? And like what was it for, and how much, how custom was it?
Well, we did what do they call that room over at Canova?
They're special species, special projects room. There we go.
The one up, so they've got all their ball pythons and stuff in the back, but up front they've got some kind of a smattering of different species and stuff up there. And we actually built them nearly a trailer full of stuff that we drove up there and delivered. I think we've got a video of us doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
That was super neat, getting to go up there and see that place. And, we delivered, arboreal snake enclosures, arboreal Cambro tub systems, and even a water monitor enclosure up there.
Wow.
And it was like, I don't know, 20 or 30 enclosures.
Yeah.
I remember right.
Yeah.
As far as like projects, that was a really cool one. Favorite enclosures, probably that Heretic, just because it's just so high tech and modern. I'm like, that's kind of one of my favorite things I'm proud of.
Yeah, it sounds like the Heretic is high tech and modern, but it sounds like it doesn't look like it would be, it sounds like everything is hidden, with the stand and all that. Like you're not seeing PC fans hanging around and, wires and stuff like that out in the open.
Yeah. Well, the first one I made, I was trying to, kind of do some
Mad Max.
Yeah. Mad Max style stuff. And the first one, it had the fan on top. It had the big charcoal filter up there. It had all the hoses running down. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. I was like, this is awesome. And then everybody's like, well, that's cool, but I don't know if I want, all that in my living room. So I behaved and I toned it down and I kind of hid the stuff. So it's just enclosure. When you look at it, it's just not a bunch of crazy stuff hanging out everywhere like I like it, but I was a good boy. I changed it.
That's so cool. So where do you when do you think you're going to get that facility next door to you, and how is that going to change your operations? Is it just going to give you more room to stretch out?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping if we can get the space, it's like a leasing company that is in between the other company, and it's like you got to talk through a million different people. So I've been harassing the guy. We'll see if they accept my proposal or not. But I think with that room over there, it would be super cool to have like kind of a neat area to do like photos and stuff. It'd be cool to have like one of those big Universal Rocks backgrounds over there and take cool pictures as, enclosures in front of it. Cause right now, like you see it behind us, that's about all we got. You take a picture of it and it's not a particularly beautiful background. It's just kind of, hey, here's an enclosure in the shop. But it'd be cool to have something like that over there. And I would really like to have tons of basically pre-made kind of stuff over there. So actually have like in-stock inventory. So have like your most popular models and their most popular configurations essentially packed and ready to go. So you could spend, a Saturday or a Sunday here and cut a bunch of them, sort of pre-assemble them and have them boxed up and ready just to go. So I think that would be really cool to have that stuff over there and keep this side towards the, more complicated setups that require a little more attention than the standard kind of copy paste unit. So I think that would be super awesome. And it would also allow us to kind of have a little overflow space.
Yeah, freight especially.
Yeah, so if you've got to pack a bunch of freight, you have your own dedicated building. You can pack up pallets and stuff everywhere, and then the freight truck can just show up once and load it up with a forklift and take all the stuff at one time versus, 2 or 3 here and there.
Shimmy them around within our production area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that sounds tough. Absolutely. So, dang, I had a question that was in my head and now it's totally gone. It had something, well, like, would that be sort of the showroom that people have asked you about in the past, or would it just be sort of a staging area for things to be ready to fly off the shelf?
Yeah, I'd love to say it would be a sweet showroom. People can come and look at stuff, but I know it would just be instantly full of stuff that needs to go out. So it would last like all of 10 minutes, and then it would really just become basically a shipping operation out of there.
And yeah, we have like over 30 models, so it's tough. Pretty much everything we have currently is just made to order because everybody configures them differently. So it's tough. I mean, that's why we have what's called our enclosure talks. So we have over 500 videos on our YouTube channel that kind of like show and walk you through different setups that we've had over the years to see how they're configured. Because it's really tough because somebody can come look at an enclosure, but you really don't know how like the stuff is set up. So that's where the enclosure talk videos come in without having to take up a bunch of space. And like Steven said, it would probably just get overrun with everything else. And that would probably fill it up if we actually had a model of each of our models, actually built. There's quite a few of them.
Wow. Do you guys do reptile shows?
We used to. So that's kind of how we got started. And sure enough, we got so busy that we had a lead time on everything. So it didn't make any sense for me to, build an enclosure that somebody's technically waiting on just to take to a show and sell that day. And then, of course, while you're at the show, you'd have as many online sales or more than you did while you're at the show. So I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense for me to do it. Now, if we can ever get some overstock or have those like pre-made units like I was talking about, it'd be kind of cool to go to a show and just see if people wanted them while we're there. But our stuff's it's just so online it doesn't make sense for us to spend the weekend there when we could be here assembling stuff and shipping it out.
And you're just limited to the size of the trailer for what you could bring. So it's kind of limited there too.
Yeah, I was thinking that it seems like it would just be a giant time suck, like between loading, bring it there, setting up for the show. And while you're doing all that, you're losing valuable time that you could actually be putting things together and building things. And
shows were cool. I'm not anti-show at all.
Yeah, it's fun to talk to everyone.
It was really neat going to them. I'm like, I just couldn't do all of the things at once,
Yeah. Yeah. How do you guys find time to take care of your animals?
Get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's every morning. So even on weekends, it's usually like around 4 hours is how long it takes. So we'll get up at 5 a.m., make the coffee, instantly start, going through your rounds and
yes, you've got like 60-ish
crested geckos
upstairs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we go up there first. Those guys, they're so messy. They've got to be cleaned every day. So every morning, you get your coffee and you go straight upstairs, you clean all those guys, and then you come down and you do everybody else. So you've got, all your green trees and, basically all the rest of your snakes and monitors and stuff like that. Snakes are easy.
Yeah, snakes are easy.
They don't require nearly as much attention as all the stuff with legs. So the monitors,
they're the last thing in the morning.
Take a lot of time.
Go out there.
Yeah, and the geckos take a lot of time.
Yeah, and
that's why I only have snakes.
I don't know what happens. You add legs and the complication just goes through the roof.
So much dirtier.
Yeah, they're constantly eating and pooping, and it's like snakes that eat, once every 2 weeks, and
awesome.
Yeah,
water bowl every couple days and rocking and rolling.
Yeah, the water monitors. I got those before we even had. I've had a lot of these animals before we ever did the enclosure stuff. Like Stephen was saying, I was the crazy one, but yeah, I got the water monitors, and they're just. They're awesome, but they are a handful because, everybody talks about water changes with snakes and stuff like, oh, you do it every couple days, or some people go up to a week, that's all how everybody talks about it. But the water monitors get their water changed every day. And that's a lot of time.
How much water are we talking?
They're 6 foot. They're Tractor Supply troughs.
Yeah. So they're like livestock troughs
Okay.
in there. Yeah. So, and of course the water monitors are great. That's one of the reasons why I love them. Is they go in their water, so you don't have to like clean substrate and stuff. And it's all, I have like a specific pond vacuum that I clean it out with. And but I mean, it's a decent amount of water, and you just go through there and you clean them up and give them fresh water, and they always go in there, and they love getting sprayed and all that. But yeah, it's
parts of our backyard are very well watered.
Yeah.
Your guys' life gives me anxiety.
Yeah. It's a 3 a.m. wake up, your heart's pounding. Did I remember to do this? Oh my God. Yeah. Between the animals and the enclosures, we try to take care of everybody.
Oh my gosh.
You kind of get used to it though. It sort of becomes, routine. You wake up and you just go.
Yeah.
So you're up at 4 or 5 and working with the animals until what, 9 or 10? And then how long are you in the shop for? When do you leave the shop and turn the lights off?
It kind of depends. I mean, sometimes you can sneak out early. Sometimes you're here, for a while we had the dogs with us because we were gone so much at the house. We had to bring the dogs here, and we'd be here till 8, 9 o'clock at night. So we try and get, out kind of at a normal people time. We don't like take a lunch break or anything. So it really depends on, what the kind of workload is that day and if there's a reasonable stopping point or not.
If we have pickups, shipping, anybody coming locally to pick up their enclosure, we try to like work around all that.
Yeah. And then you'll come home and take care of whatever else you need to. So then it's like, dog time, cat time, all that stuff.
Yeah. All the mammals, they take a lot of time. They're in the evening.
Do you guys have to love it when people do local pickup, right?
Oh, it's sweet.
Oh,
as long as their vehicle fits.
Yeah.
Whatever they're coming to pick up. There's a lot of folks who'll, they want a 4x2x2, and then they'll go measure their door access, and they'll measure one dimension, but they forget the third dimension. And I'm like, this is not going to fit. And that's when it gets kind of a little tricky. But for most local pickups, dude, it's so sweet. It's just kind of like we have them either wrapped up in their, clear plastic wrap, or if it's going in the bed of a truck, we use UV resistant black plastic wrap, so the sun's not nuking it the whole way home. It's just sweet. Somebody shows up with a pickup truck or U-Haul or trailer, slide them on and see you later. So we like those.
Yeah, I bet.
More of them now.
Yeah,
people are kind of finding out about us because most of our stuff went way far away, but local people are kind of figuring out, I could just drive by and pick my stuff up. And that's a sweet deal.
Yeah, I bet. So how many orders do you guys get like a week?
Man, it
ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it really oscillates. I mean, every now and then you'll have like a week where nothing comes in and you're like, oh, it's all over now. We're finally done, And then sure enough, you just get pummeled all weekend. I mean, most people like order their stuff from, it's like midnight to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
That's when most of your orders come in.
That's when everybody's drunk and high.
I guess get on a website like, look at all the colors, man. This thing has windows. That's cool.
Their wife is asleep or husband, and they've had a couple drinks, and
you get them right first thing in the morning. So I'm like, somebody just clocked into work and went shopping. There's no way at 9:30 a.m. somebody's not doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's really cool, guys, and I wish the best of luck to you, and it sounds like you've got an incredible thing going over there, and I hope you guys keep hammering away and busting cages out. And what are the dimensions of these ones that I'm looking at right behind you?
That one there is what we call our monolith. So that thing is a 2x2x3. The one, oh God, I'm not good at this. The one next to it, that's actually a hanger 6. So that actually uses those Cambro tubs. So for like green tree guys who keep them sterile in tubs, that unit holds 6 of the, what size are they? The
18 by 12 by 9.
Yeah. So it holds 6 of those. It's all back heat. You can option those with or without lights and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Those are super, super popular. And there's a weird model you can't quite see, which was the original kind of skeleton of the Heretic. So it was just a kind of standalone enclosure. And I took, you can't see the white one there, but that's what I based the Heretic actual enclosure off of. So that was kind of like the old Gen 1 style.
Wow. Have the prices in plastic, you said they like went through the roof. Have they leveled out? Have they come back down, or did they
stabilize?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So doubled, more than doubled, and then stayed there.
Yeah. Nothing comes back down. Now, fortunately, we've been able to buy much more in bulk now. So that helped a bit. So instead of like when we first started, you're buying a sheet or two at a time, and then you're buying, maybe a pallet every couple months. And now we're going through pallets a month. I mean, it's a ludicrous amount of plastic that comes through here. So I think in the Houston area, like the suppliers that we buy from, we are one of, if not their largest customer, which is frightening. When they told me that, I'm like, oh, that's not good, man. I don't want to be that guy. That's too much plastic.
That's awesome. So you said you guys are in Houston area?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We're right on Lake Conroe. So if you walk out our shop, you can see one of the fingers of the lake from the shop. We actually rode a jet ski from our house almost all the way to the shop. There's like a creek that comes up to the shop, and we made it close enough where you could stand up on top of the ski and you could read the door numbers on our building.
That's hilarious. Are you guys able to take vacations, or is that just not a thing?
We've not done that in 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, we've gone places to deliver enclosures and try to like have some, little time, but we have to bring the dogs with us and everything. So there's vacation. What is that?
Yeah. So like the one big one was when we went all from here all along the East Coast delivering a bunch of enclosures. That's when we went to Canova and dropped their stuff off. We had a bunch of other customers on the way, so we crammed their stuff in there too. And we just kind of, as we drove along, went to people's houses, and if they weren't home, we set them outside and took off. So we did a bunch of those kind of deliveries on the way. So that was pretty fun.
All the way up to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But other than that, it's just been basically this.
Yeah. We live basically here. We go home for, sleeping and cooking.
Mm-hmm. Eat, sleep, and get back to work.
Yeah.
Hey, that's it. Hey, well, you got a good thing going. You just got to ride that wave. So
absolutely.
I'm hanging on to this as long as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are talked about often in the hobby, and it seems like you guys are like the go-to for the green trees and things like that. You guys come up with some awesome designs for everything green tree. And, it seems like you're the route to go in that direction for sure. I'm surprised.
Really, you're like scrolling through Facebook or whatever, and then you start seeing people talking about you and like other posts. I'm like, this is weird. It's so strange.
It is very surreal.
Yeah, and especially since you were just kind of dinking around like 5 years ago, right? And
oh yeah, I was just being silly, trying to make stuff. The first large machine we bought, I didn't want to spend the money. It was like 15 grand, and I was just shaking in my boots about it. And I'm like, you know what? There was a guy who wanted like a 4 or 5 foot enclosure. I could not make it. I did not have the equipment to do it. I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this guy's for real or not. I'll send him an invoice, and if he pays for this enclosure, I'll buy this bigger machine. And the dude paid the invoice, and I freaked out. So then I had to get the machine, and it was like
it was on back order because of COVID.
Well, yeah, you had to assemble it, and then we had to wait for it to come in. So I'm like, oh, what did you do, Steven? And I'm waiting on boxes to show up with aluminum extrusions in it so that then I could build a CNC machine. I don't know anything about anything. So I'm reading the instructions when this thing finally came. I'm trying to bolt it together and square it and make it work.
Program it. Yep.
That was the kick in the butt we needed to get the bigger piece of equipment. And then that's when we realized we got to get out of our garage. We need a real shop.
Do you have like a background in programming? Like how did you're just self-taught? You just started messing around with it and figured it out?
University.
Yeah. YouTube. And I broke a lot of stuff.
That was,
that was really it. I just watched some basic, like CAD cam videos online. So I went and looked the program I was using. I'd figure out how people were using it, and I would try and replicate that. And then for like how to program the machine and stuff, I would just watch other, people online who would machine things, and I'd try and copy their parameters, or I'd Google what feed and speed you might need for this material. And I just kept trying stuff until I figured it out. So it's
a lot of trial and error, staying up, sitting in bed, and it's just talking about how to learn how to do stuff, how we learned how to design and everything. I mean, it seems easy. It's like, oh, just watch a couple videos, but it's an iteration process for sure, learning and breaking stuff.
Well, yeah, I think it's been fortunate because I don't have any, any other background. So I don't have a preconceived notion on how this or that should be done. So it was just kind of wide open. Just whatever I could figure out is what I could make. So I wasn't stuck to any, particular type of learning. I could just do whatever and see how it worked and kind of learn that way. So it's been pretty freeing being able to do sort of whatever you want. And I think that's what's led to a lot of weird and wild designs and stuff. I didn't have any, preconceived thought pattern how things should be. So I would just try stuff and see what happened.
Wow. How much customer feedback do you guys get? And does that like alter how you do things? Like, will people say, hey, X, Y, and Z is this way, and I really wish it would have come out this way, and then you build off of that? Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, because when you first make anything, you can kind of test it at your house and go, well, I think this is going to work. But when it ends up in Canada or ends up in Washington State or ends up in Florida, it's a totally different deal. So you listen to those people. Like a lot of our most popular models were from folks who knew a lot more than me that kept the animals at that time. And they'd say, hey, this works or this doesn't work or this should be here or that should be there. And, since we manufacture the products ourselves, we're flexible and we can change something if it needs to be updated. It's not like we bought, 10,000 units from overseas and now I've got to get rid of them. So I have to figure out how to sell this thing that doesn't work right. If it's no good, I can change it and fix it. And then going forward, everything's A-okay. So fortunately we're flexible like that. So, and that's where, like I say, most of our most popular stuff came from. It's like, hey, I like this or I don't like that. And I could change it. So we just kind of rolled with it and see what works.
Nice. How much waste, how much more efficient have you gotten as time has gone on? Did you have a lot of waste in the beginning? Like just excess?
Yeah, I still have like a lot of the original stuff from our garage, like weird random scrap pieces piled up over there. I mean, if you come in here, it looks like an insane hoarder lives in here. I have all kinds of plastic pieces and different sizes and stuff. But I've gotten a whole lot smarter about it, especially with like new equipment that's a whole lot more modern and more accurate. You can really make use of as much as that sheet as possible. So waste is the enemy. You don't want a bunch of scrap everywhere because scrap is not free. You did have to pay for it. So you definitely want to be able to utilize it. Instead of having to run a bunch of individual files, you run as much as you can out of one sheet at one time to try and save time and material. So it's gotten a whole lot better.
And a lot of our sizes make best use of the sheet. So there's a lot of very inefficient sizes and people ask, well, why don't you make this size? And it's like, well, this smaller size would cost as much as an 8x4x4 because there's waste on the sheets that's not usable. So.
And plus, you're not damaging stuff. Like I've learned how to machine things a whole lot better. So there's a lot less scrap from me screwing something up. So that's how much too is doing that right.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be at your over 10,000 hours now. You're probably at like 20,000 hours with the hours you work and everything within a 5-year period.
I'm not doing that math. I don't want to know. Yeah. I've learned a lot of stuff, just trial and error, man. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it doesn't.
Can you recycle the waste? I mean, it would be so cool if there was like a factory where you could bring it and they could melt it down into new sheets for you, It
is. I don't know. I've seen some guys saying that their PVC is not recyclable. Ours is, I think it's considered a class 4 solid recyclable. So it actually is. So you don't have to trash it. Yeah.
But we don't get it back, but it is like the sheets, like if we were to recycle it. But yes, it is a recyclable product.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. Do you have anything else you want to say about the business or?
I mean, well, I guess first, thanks for having us on. It's kind of, it's still surreal. You get to do a podcast talking about a thing you started doing in your garage as a goof. So every time, we get to do something like this, I'm like, that's so crazy that somebody is actually, interested first in anything we have to say. And then second, that they buy the boxes. I'm like, that's just so wild. Every time you get an order, you're like, no way.
And most of the time it's from people who have ordered from us before. We call them our focus family. I'm like, most of our orders are repeat customers because they're so happy with, what they've got. They've actually had to like see and touch and use it. And that's one of the best things about it is, we know that people like them.
Yeah. And it's just fun making new stuff. I mean, I think enclosures are headed towards a lot more automation. So there's a couple things I'm trying to work on, I guess, to take a lot of the guesswork out of, certain things. I think there needs to be a lot more technology in enclosures instead of just kind of random guesstimates like we've all been doing so far. So I'm trying to work on automation. Ventilation's a huge thing. I mean, heck, we even have what's called our expanse model, and it actually has manual adjustable ventilation. So it's got vents in the substrate dam and in the rear wall. And instead of having that automated, I mean, literally, I have sliders that you can move back and forth and adjust ventilation, like during shed cycles, or if you need to up the humidity or decrease the humidity. Say you spilled a bunch of water in there or something, you can open those vents up and help it blow out. So just, I think more stuff like that is where this stuff's all going to go. So I'm trying to figure out how to automate more things and take the human guesswork out of it. So I've got some neato gizmos I'm working on.
Oh, that's part of why I was so excited to talk to you guys, because I could tell by talking to other people how passionate you were about making a better product, and not, it seems like, are you deterred by custom orders, or do you embrace it? Is that what you get excited about by people coming to you with ideas and new designs?
I like unique ideas. Now, like constantly needing something a 1/4 inch taller or a 1/2 inch narrower and stuff, we get a lot of requests like that, which it's just not feasible to redesign everything, in every possible size or configuration. But I like kind of new, novel ideas. Like there's a enclosure you can't see behind us, but it's actually, it uses the large Cambro tubs. So a lot of green tree guys like using those large Cambro tubs, but most of those racks have been heated with heat tape. So we actually have them now that is like a Cambro rack style system that actually uses a radiant heat panel. So it took a bunch of clever machining and spacing and all this kind of stuff to actually be able to install heat panels. We use the new Wilbanks panels. Since they're super low profile, they're actually installed kind of in the ceiling. So when the tub passes by, like the old school ones, you'd have to notch the tub out and all this stuff to get it past the heat panel. This stuff is all recessed into the ceiling. And so the tub passes by it. It's super incognito looking, and you don't have to worry about, heat tape, or if you're in a colder ambient, that heat panel's got a bunch of grunt, so you can apply, plenty of heat. That's been a super, super neat one.
Yeah, and on the tub thing, we actually have a setup that actually can take UVB. So it's the arboreal tub setups, and it's, that took a little bit of extra designing to be able to fit the UVB in there and it still be safe for the animal and still work. But that's actually what I use for my crested geckos. So the adults are all in the the 26 by 18 by 15 tub. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's so easy to be able to, geckos, like we were talking about, they're just dirty. So you can just take the tub out, put a new one in, and then they still have UVB. So it's really,
it's very convenient.
Yeah.
It looks attractive. It's healthy for the animal because you can keep it clean and you can still offer things like UVB. So it's a really cool setup.
Do you guys think UVB is important, that most reptiles should have it?
I mean, it seems to be, the more that this stuff's discussed, it seems like it's becoming kind of more and more of a standard for enclosures. Like when we first started, UVB, you'd scare the doo-doo out of everybody with it. Now a huge portion of our enclosures, yeah. I mean, yeah, half or more that have accessories have UVB. Now, of course, the percentage depends on the species and the distance from the ceiling and all that kind of stuff. But it's become hugely popular. So there's definitely some momentum going towards UVB big time now.
And it's anecdotal. I mean, we're not actually like doing research on it, but I mean, our animals, like Stephen was saying, cryptic basking from the green trees, they will physically go under the UVB and choose to, and then they'll move over under their leaf. Same with the geckos. You actually see the animals really using it. We have a leopard gecko. She'll come out and use it. And all of our animals are moving towards UVB as they get older. So like neonate green trees and stuff like that, and some of the smaller like geckos, they're raised without the UVB just because they're so delicate and younger, and you want to establish them first. But yeah, as they get older, we see the animals using the UVB.
Wow. Do you guys do any kind of racks?
The only kind of rack style with stuff we do is using those Cambro tubs. So we don't use any opaque, kind of general standard rack stuff. There's just, everybody and their brother makes racks. I mean, it's such a saturated market That's why we went towards the Cambro route, because, the tubs are super durable. They're super tough. They're clear. So that allows us to add like that hanger 6 back there. You can order those with LED lights. So if you've got animals you're growing up and you're trying to get them used to light cycles, or if you're just trying to display them or whatever, you've got that dimmable LED. You can crank the light up, crank the light down. But we mostly stick to the Cambro stuff.
Where do you hide the lights in that unit?
They fit in the back very corners there. So if you can see the kind of light colored spots, those are rear vents. They're different sizes, obviously, as you go up, because we're trying to expel a little bit of that extra heat. But they fit way in the back corners back there. So they're, yeah. So they're technically backlit, because I didn't want to put the LEDs in the front, because turn that LED on. A lot of those snakes will want to turn around backwards because they don't want the light, facing them. So I kind of like illuminating them from the back, so you can get them used to that light, but they're maybe facing forward, so you can actually look at them. Because it's always boring when snakes turn around. You're like, what are you doing, bro? How much you cost? Turn around.
That's funny. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and
sure,
it was great talking with you, and I love the passion.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time, and I like what you're doing. Tracy's, she's super cool.
Yep.
And it's really just, it's neat to meet lots of different type of people that all have the same passion for these amazing animals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Tracy was great to have on, and I love everybody I talk to. I love hearing, when they say somebody else's name that they're appreciating what they're doing. And she obviously is appreciating what you guys are doing.
Yeah, she's actually trying to do everything right. She's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, enjoy your weekend, and don't work too much.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah, we'll try.